Mr. President, I was disappointed but not surprised that Senator McConnell came to the floor and announced he would not support the nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson by President Biden to fill the vacancy of Stephen Breyer on the United States Supreme Court. Just this morning, or early afternoon, we wrapped up the 4-day process in the Senate Judiciary Committee considering her nomination. And that's why some of the statements which the senator made in justifying his opposition, I believe, need to be addressed. I'll be brief in doing so, but I wanted to make a record of them quickly. It seems that he is concerned, as many Republicans are, with the notion of packing the court. Packing the court. The notion behind that is that the Democrats are inspired to appoint some number of new justices to that court, maybe 4, and thereby tip the balance back toward the Democratic side. And so the question obviously before us is, where does that idea come from? And I'll be honest with you, even as chairman of that committee, I don't know. I suppose there are some academics and theorists and researchers who believe that's well worthy of conversation. But let's be honest about this issue, which seems to consume the Republicans in the Senate. There is only one United States senator has had a direct impact on the composition of the United States Supreme Court in modern memory. Who was that senator? It was Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, because he decided to keep the court at 8 justices for almost a year after the death of Anton Scalia. He refused to give President Obama his constitutional and legal option of filling the vacancy from the Scalia departure from the court. And for a year, Mitch McConnell, for his own political purposes, kept the court composition at 8. So when it comes to moving the numbers of justices, he has retired the trophy in modern times because he was the one who did it. And when he starts speculating about the possibility of, well, maybe they'll add 1, 2, 3, or 4 more justices if the Democrats get an opportunity, I happen to know, and you do as well, that nothing is going to happen changing the composition of the court unless it passes the United States Senate, which under current rules requires 60 votes. There are currently 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. So the likelihood of, quote, packing the court is very unlikely in the near future unless some decisions made by the electorate that dramatically changes that. In the meantime, we are in a situation where we have a vacancy on the court, which we are trying to fill with a very competent person. And this notion of packing the court being the number one issue he cited is beyond me. There is no sinister conspiracy that I'm even aware of that suggests that this is an agenda item for the Democrats. Of course, we would like to see the court be more sympathetic to our point of view, but there is no grand plan for this to happen. Incidentally, the Constitution of the United States, I usually kept a copy in my desk here, Constitution of the United States does not mandate the number of Supreme Court justices. We've had various numbers over the years. We arrived at the number of 9 in 1869, I believe that was a year. So it has been a tradition on the court since that time. The answer by Ketanji Brown Jackson, the federal judge, DC Circuit judge, was the obvious answer. When asked about whether she wanted to pack the court, she said, "Senator, that's not my job. I would be a judge. You are a legislator, and you would have the power, if you wish, to change the composition of the court. I, as a judge, don't have that authority." So to make that the number one reason why you can't support her nomination is less than compelling. Then the second thing you raised was one we heard over and over again. Judge Jackson, what is your philosophy? Tell us your philosophy when it comes to the court. What is your judicial philosophy? We want to make sure we know. Well, there are different schools of thought when it comes to the Constitution. Anton Scalia was a so-called originalist, and Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh is a textualist, I believe, and there may be many other schools of thought. But the bottom line is, she has said, I have published 573 written opinions. You want to know what I think about the law? Here is my body of work. Take a look at it on almost every topic under the sun. So if you want to know how she rules and what she thinks, she can represent whatever she wishes, but her words already speak for themselves, and she's been very open and provides 12,000 pages from her time on the Sentencing Commission that also reflect her views on very important topics. There's also the old saw, we knew it was coming. The Republicans are testing their messages for November election, and I'll bet you've heard some of them. And one of them is, Democrats are soft on crime. They said that about Judge Jackson, but they've got a problem. Judge Jackson has been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and NOBLE, the black elected law enforcement officials across the United States, in addition to other law enforcement leaders. She has a history in her family of brothers and a son, I should say brothers and other members, uncles, who have been in law enforcement, risking their lives for the safety of their community over and over. And one of her uncles was the chief of police in Miami, Florida. So this woman is no stranger to law enforcement. It's part of her family. It's part of what she grew up in. And to argue that she's, quote, soft on crime ignores the obvious. She's got it in her blood. She is going to be fair, I am sure, when she is on the Supreme Court, but she has no prejudice against police groups. It's part of her family history. There's also the question about giving light sentences. We spent more time on this than one can imagine. 3 or 4 Republican senators were dwelling on her sentencing in a handful of cases and wouldn't let go of it day after day for 2 straight days. And note they've refused to acknowledge, and the reality is that her choice of sentencing guidelines was within the same limits and boundaries of 70% of current federal judges. In some regions, 80%. She was not out of the mainstream. She was directly in the mainstream when it came to sentencing. You would think the opposite was true. When you look at these facts and realize that here is our opportunity to put the first African-American woman on the United States Supreme Court, and that these are the best arguments they can come up with against her, it really troubles me. I sincerely hope, I really hope, not just because I want to make sure she's on the court, that we will have a bipartisan support for her nomination. If this turns out to be a strictly partisan vote with this historic opportunity, it'll be sad. Sad for our country and sad as a commentary on where the parties are today. I'm still hoping, that several Republicans, I hope many more, will step forward and support her nomination. I'm disappointed with Senator McConnell's decision, but I'm not surprised.